Alright, this is actually your practice quiz number 4, but it's chapter 7, quiz number 5. Well, just my numbering system's kind of funky because, yeah, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. I think I give you guys my second or third quiz and whatever. Either way, it's practice quiz 4. So let's go through this. I've got all the answers. These types of questions are as hard as it gets, so I'm going to have to just go through the stuff that I've typed out. So suppose the method int sign where it's passed in an x returns 1 if x is positive, -1 if x is negative, and 0 if it's 0. Given this, what are the values of the elements of nums after the following code is executed? Alright, so let's go through this. So the way I did this is I wrote out, you got k is 0, k is less than the length. So then we've got k at position 0. So basically I worked from the bottom up here, all right? So this is your index, okay? These are your index. Index position 0. And maybe I'll write that, index. No, I won't, because it's just, yeah, I'm just not going to, alright? So index position 0. At index position 0, we have -2 right here and here, okay? So if we were to write it out right there, you have, let's see here, you'd have, it would pass in this to signs, which would be, what's at position 0? So that would be -2. So since it's -2, it would return a -1. Okay, so our original equation would then be -2 minus a -1, and that would equal a -1, all right? So negative and negative is a positive, so -2 plus 1 is -1. Okay, and that's our minus equals right here. Basically, if we were to write it out, it'd be nums at position k equals nums at position k minus the sign, which it would return, a -1 if it's negative, a 1 if it's positive, and a 0 if it's 0, okay? So then down here for the second one, you've got nums at 0 plus equals whatever it returns. So, let's see here. So we changed up, so there's our index position. We changed up what was that position 0. So position 0 is now -1, okay, right here. So that returns a -1 when we call the sign. So -1 plus a negative, or -1 plus a -1 is a -2. So what's at position 0 is -2, okay? And then we add 1 to k, and 1 is less than 5. And then, so in index position 1 now, that is a -1, okay? So a -1's right here. So a -1 returns a -1, so -1 minus -1 is 0, okay? So 0 gets, this changes to, well, that doesn't change yet, but 0 is what's returned at position 1 right here when we go over. So I just draw my arrow. Okay, 0 returns 0, so 0 plus 0 is 0. So now what's at position 1 is 0. Okay, k becomes 2, and you can kind of follow along for each of these, okay? This one is as hard as it gets because there's a lot going on. You would have to write this out pretty well. I wrote it out a really long way. You can write it out with not as much stuff here, but I don't think you'll ever see one this difficult anywhere. So that's how you follow along this one, and you eventually get -2, 0, 0, 0, 2. Okay, so your answer for 1 is E. 2, consider the following code segment. So I is 0. What do we got here? I is less than the length. Okay, what is the result when the code segment is executed? T holds the value. so we can kind of go through this. So number 2. All right. I think I made a mistake here. Let me think here for a second. I think. Never mind. I was thinking that there needed to be, we would need to initialize t, but we don't. Let's just go through this. So I is 0, I is less than 2. Then j is 0, 0 is less than 3. So the rows are 1, 2, and then we're looking at the column, number of columns in row 0, so that's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and so when we got I, j, and 0, right here I is 0, j is 0, and then we got 1. So in position 0, 0, we've got 1. So that's where I've got this at. Position 0, 0 is 1. Sorry, right here. Position 0, 0 is 1. All right. And then we add 1 to j. 1 is less than 3. So in position 0, 1, we've got 0, 1, 1, which is 2. So 2 gets stored in position 0, row 0, column 1. Then we add 1 to 1, it gives us 2. 2 is less than 3. So in position 0, row 0, column 2, we have 0, 2, 1. Okay, so j is 2, I is 0, plus 1 is 3. So in row 0, column 2, we have 3. Then we add 1 to j. 3 is not less than 3, so that first inner loop is done. So now we're got to go to the outer loop. I becomes 1, 1 is less than 2. So 0 is j, 0 is less than 3. That's true. So in row 1, column 0, we run that. I is 1, j is 0, and then we add 1 to it. So then at position row 1, column 0, we have 2 right here. And then j becomes 1. 1 is less than 3. So in row 1, column 1, you just add them all up. So that's 3. So in row 1, column 1, you've got 3. Row 1, column 1, you got 3. Add 1 to j. 2 is less than 3. So row 1, column 2, you got 1 plus 2 plus 1, you got 4. Okay, so row 1, column 2, you got 4. And then j becomes the same thing, j becomes 3. 3 is not less than 3. So the at inner loop is done. And then I becomes 2. 2 is not less than 2. So it's all done. And that's your final answer, okay? So let's go to number, what we got up here, 3. Consider the following code segment. Okay, we got a 2D array with 6 rows, 3 columns. Alright, so k is 0. K is less than the length of our rows. So then we got row 0, and then this is the length of the length of the columns in row 0 minus 1. So you've got the length is 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. So that's the last position. So you've got column 0, 1, 2, but the length is 3. 3 minus 1 gives us 2. So then for each one of these, so you've got row 0, row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5. So each one of these, in the last column, we're going to set it to a star. So number 3, I think I gave you guys an example here. So 0 is less than 6, and then you can see 1 is less than 6, and then all the way down to 5 is less than 6. Okay, and then all I do is I just say row 0, column 2, and we set that to star. row 1, column 2, set to the star. 2, column 2, set to the star. So the last column in each row is a star. So your answer is C for number 3. Let's see what the other choices are. All elements in the last column are set to the star. All elements in the last row, not the last, it's just the last column in each row. All elements in the first row, no. So yeah, your answer is C. 4, what is the output of the following code segment? So we got a list that contains string objects. So we got A, B, C, D, E. And so we're removing what's at position 1, it looks like. So anyway, let's look at 4 down here. Okay, so what do we do here? 1 is less than 3, 2 is less than or equal to 3, 3 is less than or equal to 3, 4 is not equal. So we're removing at what's at 1. So we remove B, we remove C, we remove D, and so we got A and E at the end. And that's our new list. And it looks like we're adding a star then. So what is this 4? Let's see what the second for loop in here does. We're adding a star at position 1, and then right here is just displaying the list. So let's go back down to 4, the answers. So at position 1 add a star, position 1 add a star, this star gets moved down, position 1 add a star, these two, everything right here gets moved down. So we print it, we got A star 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 E, which is C. 4 is, 4 is C. And 5, consider the following method. All right, what is the output of the following code segment? So, okay, so we reduce it. So we got 3, 2, 1, 0. So in column 0, length is 3. So the length of this is 4 actually. So, but this is position 3 right here. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's look at 5 down here. So 0 is less than 3, so we subtract 1 from it. So this becomes 3 becomes 2. Then we go to I becomes 1, and in position 1, 2 becomes 1. Then position 2, and 2 is less than 3, so then position 2 we subtract 1. And so we end up with this. So we got 2, 1, 0, 0. Let's see here. Okay, so the idea of this, remember the video I created on passing, references versus value? So when I pass in length to here, length is 3, and this length ends up becoming 2. But since they're not being passed by reference because they're primitive data types, this length in this one right here doesn't change. So it's going to print the length at the end. But when you have, objects, they pass by reference. So this R that it changes to is changing up this counts. So when we run through counts and print it, it's going to print 2, 1, 0, 0, and then length is 3. So, and I just went through the table of how the R array changes, but that's what's happening there because they are because counts and R become aliases of each other, and they're pointing to the same object in memory. This R changes the counts, okay? And so at the end it prints, like I said, 2100 because of this right here. 3 is not less than 3, so it doesn't change up this last value. And then the length of 3 is the 3 in the 3 right here. So I have videos on that. You need to watch that and understand that, because these are really good AP questions to see if you understand how aliases work, and how the difference between passing objects is by reference is different than passing primitive data types by value. So that's all the multiple choice, and in the last one I broke up the multiple choice and the short answer, and I'm going to do that on this one as well. So this video is